Right. Now let's move on to the male characters. Right. So male characters are generally easier than female characters because in female characters we have to look a lot on hairstyle and stuff, right? And generally female characters become inconsistent because of the hair length or the color. Generally, because the male characters have shorter hair, it's like easier for us to keep that consistent. But in male characters we have facial hairs. That is one of the reason why generally a male character becomes inconsistent. So in male characters, the most important feature of the face where you have to be a little precise or have a little bit, you should be a little bit aware of things in a male character is one of the thing is facial hair. Like there are other stuff like shape of the face, color of the hair, length of the hair, definitely. But facial hair is something that might change in male characters, and you have to be a little precise in that. So now, starting from easier characters like we did yesterday, right? So now I have two characters here, this and this. Now they're pretty consistent characters. So if you see here, these are the first four iterations of the male character, and the character looks something like this. If I can see, the character looks pretty much consistent, right? The hair color, the hair length, and the hairstyle looks pretty much consistent because there is no partition. It's like going behind, right? So pretty much consistent. The shape of the face looks consistent enough, right? Also, one thing that is way consistent is the beard. So like if you notice, he has like kind of a French cut, not exactly because there are beard like here, not exactly like this, but like a slightly little bit beard like going like this. And it's consistent in all the images. If you see, it's not exactly a French cut. There are beard like till stubble, but it is consistent if you see. Right. So, pretty much consistent character as I can notice. Right. Now we don't have to worry a lot about hair partition and stuff because there is no partition. Right. And by these 8 images, we can make sure that, okay, the shape of the face, color of the face, partition of the hair, length of the hair, color of the hair, and facial hair looks pretty much consistent, right? Also because this is an older character, so there are wrinkles on this stuff, or the skin looks a little baggy, right? So all these features are still consistent. You can see all these wrinkles and stuff appearing on the face. Gives us a feel of him being an older character, right? So pretty much easily you can make it consistent, right? And you can choose any of these images for you, as a reference. Just pick out any image and this can be a reference. Okay, so now same character, we have to also think about once checking the side view of the character, right? So if I have to check a side view of the character, again same thing, we'll just select the character and we'll just mention side view, side pose, right? And this is what we are getting. So now again, because there was no partition and stuff, and the character is pretty consistent, we don't have to worry a lot about side views, because when we talk about side views, the most important thing is the partition is correct or not, right? So here, because there's no partition, it's perfectly fine. But because his face looks something like this, or let's take this. So now let's say his face looks something like this, right? This hairline is something like this, if you see. Right. So the side view, when we make a side view of his face, we have to be sure that the hairline is in the same structure. Like we can see this kind of hairline. So it has to be there. Because in the front view, his hairline is exactly like this. So if the hairline changes in side view, then it will be a problem. So while making side views, because there is no partition, we don't have to worry a lot about partition, but we definitely have to worry about this hairline looking exactly like this, right? Also, apart from this, we have to worry about the length of the hair, because it cannot go like a little longer hair or very short hair. So the hair length a little bit, color of the hair again, it should match with the one we had in the front view pose, right? So it should look something like this, right? And then apart from all this, we have to worry a little bit about how his beard looks, because he's not exactly clean shaved, or he's not exactly does not have a French cut. He has a little bit of stubble here, or not exactly grown beard, but yeah, something like this is what it should be, right? So while making side view poses for male characters, worry a little bit about beard, especially while making side view, because in side view, see, you sometimes don't get an idea about how exactly this beard will look when you make a side view pose, because here it's not clearly visible. Like we can see something here, but it's not clearly visible that how much facial hair is here. Like there is something we can see, but not the amount. And while making side view poses, we can see that the hair, like the facial hair is like, there is a difference between the facial hair. Like here it's a little less of a facial hair, here we have a little more, here it's way too much. So now worry a little bit about how much facial hair it should be. Like I can see this kind of facial hair is like okay to keep, because this is like looking way too much. This is okay, this is looking way too much, right? So think about it while choosing a good reference. Look at the options you have, then look at which one is looking more prominent. Like let's say this is looking way too much, if this something looks fine, we have other examples to support this image, right? So now your facial hair can be something like this. Also, why I'm saying not to keep this, because like imagine if you keep this as a side view of his face, right? Just think about it. This is the side view of his face, right? And this is the front view of his face. Right. So now this will look odd, because while looking at the front view of his face, I can see that, I'm not looking at way too much facial hair this side. Like it looks like this. But while making the side view of his face, it looks like consistent facial hair. The amount of facial hair here is the amount of facial hair here. It looks way too, like, prominent, consistent facial hair here. But here it looks like a French cut and less of facial hair at this side. So again, this looks odd. So now, while making side view faces, worry a little bit about how exactly the facial hair of a male character should look, right? And because there was no partition here, simple hair structure, so we don't have to worry a little more about getting the partitions right. Yeah. So now we have one more example here. Again, there's a pretty consistent character. Now the character looks something like this. So he has like middle parted hair, long hair. The structure of the hair looks something like this, going on both the sides, and looks pretty consistent. If you look at the images, decent, consistent character, hairstyle, and images. Right. The only thing that is like different in few of the images is the amount of facial hair he has. So, like in this example, let's say we can see that the amount of facial hair is equal to nothing, right? But in the first image, we can see a little bit of facial hair. So, worry a little bit again. I'm telling, worry a little bit about facial hairs while taking a reference image. Take a reference of how exactly his face is looking. So his face is looking decent in like this much facial hair, right? It looks okay if I say that this is the right facial hair. Like he's not exactly clean shaved. We can see a little bit of hair here and there, but this is too much. Like definitely this is a wrong image, or this is a very how do I say? According to facial hair, there's like too much facial hair here. So this will come as an inconsistent image. So out of these 8 images, this one image is an inconsistent image. So while making the images, right, you have to think about if your image starts looking like this, it might lead to inconsistencies. So make sure that first of all, you're taking a good reference. You're not taking this as a reference and trying to make the facial hair look like this. Rather, it should look like this. And if you are getting a little bit more extra facial hair, use magic eraser or use a paintbrush lightly just paint this color, like take a color from somewhere here, lightly just paint a color on top of this. Now your paint color cannot be like this. It should be like this, so that like the opacity should be low, because you should be able to see a little bit of facial hair at the back. So just lightly paint on top of that and then impaint. So that because if you impaint on top of this, maybe because there is a facial hair, it'll again start giving you facial hair there. So while if you get facial hair like this, try to use a paintbrush, remove the facial hair and then impaint it. But while choosing a reference image, this cannot be a reference image. So while always choosing a reference image, make sure you're checking at least 4 to 8 images. That is at least. You can go for 12 or 16 images as well, right? But at least eight images you can check and then decide that which is the right image for the reference. So if you want to take a reference, might go for this one, rather going for this one. Now again, because the hairstyle is easy here, easy in the sense, again, the partition is middle partition and the hair is flowing the same exact way on both the sides, right? So there is no like, how do I say? The hair does not have a difference in the way it looks from both the sides. So no matter which side I have to keep, I can just flip the image and use it. So what I mean by this is, imagine if instead of the hairstyle being middle parted, if it was side partition, right? And it'll be like this. Then I have to worry about which side he is looking and how that hair structure will look. If he turns this way or this way. Like let's say, for example, this was our female character here yesterday that we used. So if her hairstyle is like, let's say, side parted, so if she turns her head towards this side, right, her hair will look like this because the partition is on the right side. So if she turns her head towards the left angle or the left side, the partition will come here, right? And if she turns her head towards the right side, the partition will go here. And this is how she'll look if she turns her head towards both the sides. It'll look different. The partition will go different. And the hair will look different. But because in this case, the hair is in middle partition, right? And the structure looks same in both the side. So no matter where I have to make him turn his head, even if I get a different angle, like let's say, for example, I want him to look in the left side, like let's say this side, right? And I got this image. I can just flip this and directly use it because he has a hair as in the middle partition, so I can just flip the image and directly use it. So that is why middle partition hair feels easier for me to use, right? It looks better. It is easy for everyone to use, right? But here, because the hair is a bit longer, or there is a volume in the hair, like let's say, again, definitely it's curly longer, but there is also this volume, right? So while making side view faces, we have to worry a little bit about, is the volume coming right or not? So like, let's say if I take this as a reference or this, right here, I can see that the partition and everything looks fine. But also while checking the side view faces, think about, is the volume looking right when I look at the front view face? So if this is how his volume looks while he's turning his head, is this the right volume? Like let's say if this is how he looks while looking in front view direction, can this be the right hair while looking at the side view? So if you feel like yes, then it's fine. Sometimes while getting the side view faces, you might feel like the hair looks the volume comes as a very low volume, less volume, or the hair looks very thin at the back, because here you can see there's a lot of volume, like, but here sometimes, not in this character, but sometimes while working with longer hair characters, you might feel like front view faces looks like a long hair, but while making side view faces, the longer hair is not looking like longer hair, coming as short hair, or the volume is not matching, or sometimes the volume is too much or sometimes the volume is too less. So while working with longer hair characters, especially for male characters, check the volume while making the side angle faces. Right, apart from checking the partition of the hair and other stuff on the face, check for the volume of the hair. Very important. Length of the hair and volume of the hair. So if you feel like the volume of the hair looks fine, inside view faces and in front view faces, then fine. But if you feel like while making side view faces, the volume or the length is changing, again, inconsistent characters. Right. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, about in this case, the hair length and the volume looks fine while working with or while making side view faces. So the structure of the face, the color of the face, the tone of the face, the amount of facial hair, right? And the hair. If everything looks fine while making side view faces, fine enough. If any of these factors get affected, like the face looks different in front view and the face looks different in side view, again an inconsistent character. Because you always have to check if the character is coming consistent in side view faces or not. Because imagine if you didn't check for side view faces, you only checked that the front view of this character looks fine, or like whenever I'm making a front view faces, the character's face is coming way consistent. But imagine 1 or 2 images out of 10 images, you're making 3 or 4 images in side view faces. Now the rest of the 5 or 6 images, oh, pretty consistent. Only whenever you're trying the side view angle of the face, it's coming as inconsistent. So again, a very big problem, because you never know when you have to turn the head for a character. You cannot judge a character by only looking at the front view of the face, right? So always check for the front view of the face as well as the side view of the face to understand if the character is consistent or not. Okay, now this is a little hard character. Now, if you remember, we talked about 3 different types of character yesterday. Like, let's say one character which is pretty consistent, one character which we know that is inconsistent, right? In middle of that, we also had one character which was not exactly a consistent character, but it was not exactly an inconsistent character as well. Like, let's say this one. Like, we know that this one was an inconsistent character. We know that this is a consistent character. We were just choosing the right image. Like, here we did not even choose the image. We just know that this is an inconsistent character. But in the middle of that, we also had one character, like this one, where we were like, I know that this is a consistent character, but few of the images were looking odd in terms of the volume of the hair. So we had to, it's not an inconsistent character, but a difficult character to use. It's the same thing here. Now this is a difficult character. It is not entirely an inconsistent character, but a little difficult to keep. Now why I'm saying this is because, so now this is a character, right? This is the first iteration I got for this character. Now the first image that came was middle partition. Right. I'm like, okay, middle partition. Second image came as the side partition, but on the right side. The partition is on the right side. The third image came again with side partition, but the partition on the left side. Right. And then the fourth image came with again the side partition, but the partition on the right side again. So now one thing while checking the first iteration, or like the first time I made these 4 images, were like, okay, out of the 4 images, 3 of them have side partition hair or side parted hair, right? So one thing that came into my mind was, okay, maybe the middle parted hair is the wrong hair and side partition hair is the right hair, right? But again, there is a question that is the right side partition the right partition, or the left side partition is the right partition, right? So again, to understand that, we have to go for more iterations to check. We need more number of images to understand which partition is the right one, because apart from the partition, everything else was okay for me. Like the amount of facial hair he has was pretty consistent in all the images, if you see, right? or the structure of the face, the shape of the face, the tone of the face, every other facial features on the face were looking pretty consistent and decent. The only thing that was changing for me was the hair. So now on the, like, if I talk about hair, the color of the hair, length of the hair, volume of the hair, even these things are pretty consistent. If I look at the three images here, right? The only thing that was odd for me is whether it's a right side parted hair or left side parted hair, like which is the right one, right? So we went and checked more iterations for it. Now the second iteration, again, it came with a left side partition hair, right parted, left parted, again a middle parted, right? So I checked a lot of examples here, right? Now, till here, till this point, now there was a confusion that every time I'm generating the image, right, I'm getting the face consistent, I'm getting the beard consistent, I'm also getting the hair consistent. Only the partition is something that I'm not getting consistent. Every iteration that I make, like every out of 4 images, I'm getting a combination of hair. Like I'm not getting a final idea of is it a right parted hair or is it a left parted hair, because somewhere or the other you need a majority of one sided hair. Like let's say for example, while looking at this one, right, again here there was some example. Now we went with this hair, right, if you remember, like the right side parted hair, right, but there were examples in this case as well where she came with a left side parted hair, right, or a middle side parted hair. But at least here we got a clear idea that majority of the images came with side parted hair, right? Out of 4, 3 of them were side parted. Here all 4 of them were side parted, right, same side partition hair. So we've got a very clear idea that she has a side parted hair, that to right side parted hair. But in this case, right, I'm not getting a very clear idea because it has a combination of hair every time I'm making the hair. Like let's say here it's right side, left, all the iterations, like the first time, second time, third time, or fourth time, every time I'm getting a combination of both the hair. So now again, a question to think about which one is the right, because every time I'm generating something, I'm getting a different one. So then let's look at how the right side parted hair looks and how the face looks when he's in left side parted hair, right? So now think about it. When his face comes in, the hair, which is the right side parted hair, his face looks like this, or the hair looks like this. Every time you look at, a face with the right side parted hair, the face looks like this, right? Let's say this. But now the thing is, look at the face when the face comes in left side parted hair. So now this is how his face looks when it's in left parted hair. Same thing. This is how his face looks when he's in left side parted hair. Now this is how his face looks when he's in left side. Now I'll explain it like this. This is one face in left side partition, right? This is another face in left partition. Now this is another face in left partition. This is another face. Maybe let's take this one. Any other examples? Yeah, okay. So now these are different faces when he has his hair in left side partition. So now one thing that I noticed while looking at the images where he comes in left side partition is that the hair looks a little different while we look at his face in left side partition. Like few of the images, the hair is like like this. It's not coming on the face. But few of the images, the hair comes directly on the face, which makes the image look different. Like let's say, just think about it. Look at this face and this face, or look at this face and this face, right? Looks different. There's no difference in the image, but just because of this hair coming on the face, right? It just gives a different feeling for the face. So now, according to me, I was like, if I have to choose between left side parted hair or right side parted hair, I'll go with the images with his hair in right side partition. Because in right side partition, at least I'm getting decent looking faces. Right? It's looking decent enough. Every hair is like straight up like this. There is no coming on the face and stuff like those. Like let's say this. All the right side parted hair looks like this. So it looks more consistent when he's coming in right side partition. Then he's, what he's coming in left side partition. So according to me, if I have to choose, and because he's like coming, 50% of the images are coming in left side partition and 50% of them are coming in right side partition, there is no majority of partition. I cannot see any majority minority here. So if I have to choose, I'll go with something like this rather than going with something like this. And that is the first thing. Let me know if you got the idea. People on the call, are you getting an idea about why I'm choosing the right side partition? Yeah, okay. Now, okay, now, see, this is just for an understanding for me that which partition do I want. Because changing the partitions is easy here. Right now, imagine I'm choosing the partition as this. Like I'm keeping these images in the reference. That I am making images with right parted hair. Now, even if few cases he comes in left side partition, it's very easy for me to just flip the image and use as a right side partition. I just have to impaint once and it will work. Definitely I'm not going to use these kind of hairs or these kind of faces, but wherever I'll get a face similar to this and it's just a different partition, I can just flip it once and use it. Like I cannot directly use it because sometimes flipping the images makes the face look weird. Like just think about it. I don't know why this happens, but this face looks more better, but just flipping the image makes the face look weird sometimes. So if you are using something like this, like let's say if you're flipping the image and using it, make sure you're impainting the face once. Because just by that one impainting, right, your face structure will look more better. So you can definitely flip the images and use it, but make sure you're impainting. But this was important understanding for choosing the right partition, because deciding on one partition is important, because once you decide which partition you have to keep, then only you can go and decide how he will look inside view faces. So this is how he's going to look. I've decided that this is how he's going to look. Right now, let's check for the side view of his face. Right. So again, if I'm keeping this as my partition, I'm keeping right side as my partition. Right. So first thing that I'll check is his face, like face shape, structure, color, tone, facial beard, eyes, color of the eyes, eyebrows. All these things are looking okay while he's inside partition. Also, the way his face looks, in the sense, the haircut, like let's say this kind of cut, like how do I explain? This way, is this cut consistent while he's inside view? So I also think about all these things, right? So if all these things are consistent, I can first say that the character is consistent. I can see that the character looks consistent while in side view faces. Now, while making side view faces, I have to worry about, is the partition right or not? So if I have to, show him turning his head towards this direction, this is how he will look, or maybe this is how he will look, right? If he turns his head, now if this is the image, if this is how he looks in front view, this is how he will look when he turns his head towards the left angle, and this is how he will look if he turns his head towards the right angle. Because if he turns his head towards the right side, Now this partition should go on this side. So I'm gonna flip this image and use it. So this is how he will look when he turns his head towards left side. This is how he's gonna look when he turns his head towards the right side. If I'm not getting the right partition, we have to create the partition. How to create a partition? We looked about it yesterday. If you are not getting the right partition, we are gonna paint the partition, paint it, and just by doing that, we'll get the right partition. We'll do the same thing for the guy. If we want to turn his head in a particular direction and we're not getting the right partition here, we can just, paint this, make it look like the way we want, and then in paint, we'll get the right partition there. Now, this is again easy concept, but why I said that a difficult, difficult character, this is not a very consistent character because the partition had a problem. Now, even if we don't look at the partition, like except the partition, the character is pretty much consistent if you look at it. Right. The only thing because of which this character becomes a difficult character to use is because the partitions are not very accurate. Right. So again, it's not an inconsistent character. It is a pretty decent, consistent character, but we'll have to worry a little bit about the partition here. Right. Like we worried about the length and the volume of the hair for the female character. Okay. Now we have few examples of inconsistent character. Now this is a very good example. I'll explain this to you in a bit. Let's go and look for this one first. Now this is one character. Okay, now this is a very inconsistent character. I'll tell you why. Just look at the iterations. Okay, this is the first image that comes, right? Look at the face. Now this is the second image that comes. I'll just show you like this. It'll be better for you to understand. So now here I did not even check if the face structure, facial hair, length of the hair, color of the hair, or the partition of the hair is looking consistent or not. Like my first thought about this character is the age or the way his face looks is very different in all the images. Now he sometimes come as a child character, he's sometimes looking as a young character who's in school or college, he's sometimes looking as a college going student, or he's sometimes looking way more mature. Right? So he is coming, he's a very inconsistent character. So in cases like these, I don't even have to check if the face is looking okay or not, like the shape of the face is okay or not, or the hair is okay or not. Like, why will I even worry about that? It's not consistent. Because imagine one image he'll look like this and one image he'll look like this. It's not gonna work, right? So this is like for sure an inconsistent character. I don't even have to, think about making other differences here. And there are differences, like even the hair looks very odd. Like here it's different, here it's different, here it's different. Right. So hair is again different, but we don't even have to worry about hair at this point. He's not at all consistent. Right. So definitely an inconsistent character here. You got my point, right? People on the call.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Now this is an interesting character. I'll tell you why I'm calling this an interesting character. Let me explain this to you. So now, while making this character, in the sense while checking this character, right? I went from this is an consistent character to this is an difficult character to this is an inconsistent character. Like this was my thought process while, before I come at this session, I myself checked all the images, right? So now while making or checking these images, right, my way of thinking went different. First, I kept this character here. Like I kept this character in consistent characters. Then I kept it here. Like, okay, this is a difficult character. Then I kept it here, saying that this is an inconsistent character. The reason why it went like this is, I'll show you. So now, This is the first iteration of the character, right? If I look at the character, he's looking, consistent in terms of hairstyle, partition of the hair color, length, volume, face structure, so and so. So if I looked at all the four images, right? Apart from, there was one point where I felt like, it's coming a little inconsistent, but hairstyle and the way his hair looked, the length, because this was, first of all, whenever you look at this image, like the first image that comes, the first idea you get is here the hairstyle is difficult because any character, any male character with long hair, it's generally difficult to maintain. So when I saw that this character has like long hairs, I straight up went with the thought that his hairstyle is gonna come as inconsistent, or I'll have to worry a lot about keeping his hair consistent, right? So when I looked at the first four images, I felt like the hairstyle looks okay, maybe not exactly very consistent, but okay in terms of the length of the hair or the style of the hair or the volume of the hair, right? But the facial hair was something that bugged me here in the first go. Like, let's say here, if you see this face, right? Look at the amount of facial hair he has here. And the second face, look at the amount of facial hair he has here. So again, I felt like while looking at the first four images, I felt like, okay, maybe the structure of the face looks okay. Maybe the hair, partition of the hair, or the length of the hair, or the volume of the hair also looks okay. But maybe I have to worry about facial hairs in this character because his facial hair was looking different in the first two images. So I went up with the second iteration to check, how he's looking the second iteration. So now this is how the second iteration came. I first checked the facial hair. So now again the facial hair bugged me because the facial hair was still not looking consistent. Like sometimes it's less, sometimes it's way too much. Right. Apart from the facial hair, even the hairstyle started to get a little bit changed. Like here, at least the partition and the length was same in all the four images, right? But here, even the length and stuff, like the volume of the length also looked odd here, right? Like let's say here, this was the length, here, this is the length, or here, this is the exact volume his hair should be, and here the volume was less, right? So second iteration, I felt like the partition and the volume also looks a little odd because here this is like too much volume and here it's too less of a volume. Like these two faces looks entirely very different. If I look at this, does not look like the same character at all. So now again, it started to bug me. Like it is a difficult character because again, it is not a very inconsistent character, but the hairstyle is again coming difficult, right? So then I went with third iteration. In the third iteration, I got these images. So now one thing out of these 12 images, right? I made three iterations for this. Out of these 12 images, one thing that was pretty sure to me that his hairstyle is going to look like this. Like it is and side parted hair, like a little side parted hair. The length and the volume of the hair is gonna be like this because this was the hairstyle in most of the images. Like even in the third iteration where I made this, you can see that this is how his hair looks. A little side parted hair, the volume and the length looking something like this. So maybe this is the amount of hair he'll come consistent in, side partition, volume and length, and maybe the color, right? So this is how he might look. But again, the length and the volume of the hair is something I'll have to worry a little bit about because even though I am pretty sure that this is how his hair will look, like it will be a left side, slightly left side parted hair, right? This is how much length I want his hair to be, or this is how the volume of his hair should look like, right? But it's difficult because in some cases his volume of the hair is looking a bit too much, or in some cases it's very less. So again, something that I have to worry about. It's not an inconsistent character, but I'll have to think while making or using this character. I'll have to worry a little bit about his hair. Again, apart from hair, maybe facial features is also something I have to worry a little bit about. Now, this is how his facial hair looks consistent in most of the images, like not too much. Like this is too much, but this is okay. So this is how he looks in most of the images. Like this is how he's looking in most of the images. Okay, but this is too less. Now, this is not an accurate facial hair. So when I was looking at these images, I thought about this is how he's gonna look. Like this is how his hairstyle plus facial hair should look. If I have to use this character and make images for the show, I'll keep this image as my reference to check the characters or check the images, and my character should look like this or like this. Like let's say this is how his face should look, and this is how his facial hair should be. This will be my reference image for the character. So till this point, I was like, maybe this is a difficult character, not an inconsistent character, but a difficult character, right? But then, I went and checked the side angle of the character. So this is the side view of the character. The first iteration I got something like this, right? Now here I was like, okay, the face and the hair looks kind of similar to what we have here, but it looks different. The reason why it looks different is even though here he has like long hair and the color of the hair is matching and the style of the hair is matching, so and so, it's looking different because here you can see this flowing of the hair, right? It's not behind the ear. Like his hair is flowing, on top of the hair. Sorry, on top of the ear. Like we'll not be able to see this ear part. His hair should not look like this. If this is how his face looks in front view, side view, this part of hair, yeah, let's use red only. So if I'm making the side view of this character, right, and if this is how his hair looks, his hair will look like this. His hair will not look like this, right? So I'll not be able to see this, and the volume will be like this. Now this hair should look something like this, but not exactly like this. I will not be able to see his ear here. It should be more volume, right? So I was like, maybe the inside partition, his faces are not coming consistent, right? So this is not a very ideal face for me, right? Now, second image, it came like this, a very inconsistent hair, right? Like way too inconsistent. This is not even close to what we are making. Third image, again, a very inconsistent hair. Right. Fourth image, again, not looking like the one we are making. So I went with 2 iterations, and in all these 8 images, right, the hair started coming very different. Like all the 4 images, the hair looks different. All the 8 images, the hair looks entirely different from each other, and none of the hair, like not even one of the hair matched with this hair. Like I did not even get one option that I can say that, okay, this is how he will look inside partition. Like one thing is we are getting 8 images here. All the 8 images, the hair looks different. And out of the 8, none of them are matching the ideal front view face of this character. So I got an idea from this is that this is an inconsistent character. See, understand the point. This is a difficult character if I am talking about him in front view angle, right? If I have to only make him standing or looking in front view faces, right? It's a difficult character because of his length and the volume. I can still make him in front view, like let's say looking into the camera kind of faces, but it's a difficult one because I'll have to worry a little bit about, keeping the hair volume and the length consistent. But if I have to make this character in side view angles, this is an impossible task for me because out of the 8, I did not get even one right. So I know from this point that side view angle of this character is not at all possible. So this is, first of all, this is surely an inconsistent character because he's coming consistent in front view, not exactly consistent, difficult in front view, and definitely an inconsistent character in side view. So I straight up went with this is an inconsistent character. Now, these kind of characters, if I have to select the character for a show that I am doing, or if I have a choice, to check the characters or to think about the character, that I have a list and I have to check the characters and I can choose a character. These kind of characters I will never pick for characters who are appearing in the episodes a lot. Like this character can never be my main lead of the show. Or this character can never be a character who is appearing every 2 or 3 episodes. Like, not exactly the main lead of the show, but someone important in the show who lets come every 2 or 3 episodes. Or I have to make a lot of images for him. Like 4 or 5 episodes entirely, he's only appearing. So in those kinds of cases, I will never choose this character. Because I know if I have to make images using this character, that I'll may be able to keep him consistent in front view faces. I'll have to struggle a little bit, but it's still possible to keep him consistent in front view faces. But imagine if I have to ever make him in side view angles, right? It'll be a headache for me to make him consistent in side view angles. Right. And if he's coming consistently, let's say he's not and main lead, but still an important character for the show, definitely it's not possible that I will make him every time in front view faces. Somewhere I'll have to show him in the side view angles. So then it will be a headache for me. So I'll not, keep this character as my character. Or if I get a character like this, I'll inform my character trainer to change this character before I start working on the show. Like I can keep this character. Now this can be used in cases where I just have to show 1 or 2 characters. Like NPCs of the show. Like imagine I have to make a hospital scene where I have to show a doctor and the doctor is appearing only in 2 or 3 panels of the episode. And then there is no, like appearance of the doctor coming in the episode. It's just, 1 or 2 episode where the character goes to the hospital and 2 or 3 panels where I have to show the doctor. So I can make use of this character. Let's say, I'm just giving an example. Right, I have to show a hotel scene where I have to show manager of the hotel. Right, he's coming in 2 or 3 panels. I can use him. I'll show him in front of the angle and use him. But I can never use these kind of characters for characters who are main leads or important characters for the show.